Okay, so that was Nightfall by the great songwriter Duncan Faure. And I know that I always mispronounce things, but he literally has a CD called Pronounced Faure, I think. If I've got it wrong, it'll be the end of me. But anyway, I want to thank all the people that request songs on the show dedication, Fans Remember the Bay City Rollers, because this is now the second artist this has happened to for me. I keep hearing these songs, and then they really get into your head, and then you want to learn more. And I had no idea that these songs existed like 10 months ago. And I've fallen absolutely in love with some of these songs, so I had to get a copy of Anthology by Duncan Faure. And it is incredible. Now, every day for the last little while, I've been starting out my day with a coffee and listening to what you just heard, and it just puts my day into a great place. I love that song. And I know what's coming up on the CD. So we're focusing on CD 1, okay? I will do another video on the second CD in the anthology at some point in time, but we're focusing on CD 1. But anyway, yeah, I want to thank all of those great people that share their love for music, and I want to thank the people, obviously, running that radio show that take all these requests so that we can popularize this music and we can learn about this music. So let's talk about Duncan a little bit. Now, I don't know a lot. I don't know a lot about Duncan. And I have to say, I'm very unhappy with the Wikipedia article because I think there's a lot more that can go into it. It's just a very small write-up, but you don't end up writing songs like that and only have a paragraph written about you. You know, there's obviously so much more going on. Now, things that I can piece together, I will present now. So the first thing that I see, and I'm so happy that this is provided on the anthology. Now, I'm not playing it this time because it's on the second CD, but it's very important. So Duncan was in this band, Orange Cash Boat. And this is where we first hear his songwriting. And there's one song in particular, and my eyesight is very bad. But yeah, Girl on Her Own. Great stuff from 1972. So this is where I am starting with this, 1972. And I was shocked when I heard that song. And the reason I was shocked was it had some Beatles influences in it. And everyone knows that I have a lot of respect for Eric Carmen, right? And there's a Scottish band that I have a lot of respect for in the sense that they weren't necessarily doing prog rock in the early 70s. They were trying to continue on with the great tradition of British rock and roll, you know, and British pop music. And it was being frowned upon in so many places. And so it's great to see that Duncan, way back in 1972, had the same idea that people like Eric Carmen had, right? And it's a good song. And you know what? We will have it on the next video. But you know what? I'll put a link to it. Since it's not in this video, I'll put a link to it. And you should go check that out to see what he was up to in 1972. He already had good harmonies. He already had good songwriting. Okay? Now, as far as the songwriting goes after that, he was in a band, Rabbitt, which is probably one of the most popular bands in the history of South Africa. So I guess I should mention that Duncan hails from South Africa. And the thing that happens with Rabbitt, that like I'm not a knowledgeable person about Rabbitt, but the thing is that it looks like what happened is that Trevor left Rabbitt, right? And let me just check this. Like Trevor Rabbitt moved on from Rabbitt, and so in 1977, We have this album Rock Rabbitt that comes out, and Duncan is pretty much responsible for all of the songwriting on there. Okay, whereas previously we don't see a tremendous amount of songs written by Duncan. There is a Love You song, which is on A Croak and a Grunt in the Night, and yeah, I don't see much else. But the thing is, Duncan is an excellent songwriter, so immediately he comes out with this Hello and Welcome Home, which I've already talked about in the past because he did that song again with the Rollers. And what I said about that was that this is like Paul McCartney and Wings level stuff, right? So anyway, after Rabbitt, as you can kind of tell by what I've already said, Duncan moves on and starts playing with the Rollers, which were previously the Bay City Rollers, and they renamed themselves because they have a new sound and all that. Now, I hear a lot of people and read a lot of people saying he replaced Les. I think it's far more than that. He was a huge contributor as far as songwriting goes to the Rollers, right? He was not simply a vocalist. And not only that, he did a lot of important guitar lead parts as well, right? And so, like, three songs that really stick out for me would be Playing in a Rock and Roll Band, the second version of Hello and Welcome Home, and I think New York on Vox would be the three that really stick out for me. And that's how I came to know who Duncan was, because as a kid, like a young teen, I was buying these albums, and there was this new guy. And I was going through all of the, like, who wrote what, that I typically did from way back from when I was like 5 years old. And I didn't understand the history of where he had come from, right? And I didn't know where he had gone on to after listening to those records. But there was a lot of special stuff going on in those records. 1 second, I'm just going to take a quick break. Okay, sorry about that. So one thing that did happen after his stint with the Rollers, so there's 3 albums that they released, is this thing here. There's this band CaRu, and there's this album CaRu Cuts, and I think they also had a single that was released with, I think the A-side was L.A. Girl. And so this album has Duncan and Stuart Wood from the Rollers, right? And also, let me see here, Richie Hall on drums and percussion. And this is a very decent album. Like, there's some really special stuff that goes on here. And on a little bit of a side note, there are some tracks from CaRu on the anthology CD that I highly recommend listening to. I think they're great. But also, I think the first 2 tracks, L.A. Girl and I Remember, are written by Stuart. And they are exceptional little pop songs. I love them. So I love that record. And, it's not the easiest thing to find, but if you can get a hold of a copy of that, I recommend it at, a somewhat reasonable price. So, so we've covered the very early days, well, let me put it this way. Hearing the 1972 recording, I realized that Duncan was one of those early pioneers, along with Eric Carmen and along with that Scottish band, that were not going to stop playing decent pop music. And they also contributed towards power pop, right? Which is not something that I'm hugely familiar with, but it's something that I hugely appreciate that they did. And as a matter of fact, I was having a conversation recently where I was saying, if Duncan hadn't joined the Rollers, like what other options would there have been? And the only other person that came to mind was Eric Carmen. But Eric Carmen at that point had already moved on to his Rachmaninoff stage, where he was writing ballads based on like concertos and stuff like that. So he had done his bit, and he had moved on, right? So anyway, listen, we were talking about the CaRu Cuts album. The next track is on Anthology, and lucky for you, it is actually from the CaRu Cuts album, so you can enjoy it without spending hundreds of dollars. So why don't we get straight into that right now?
There was a time I remember I was looking forward to whenever in the right place at the right time. Though you'd never have known it, you'd never have known it. Life can be long, times like a raging war. You're in the right place.
Okay, so I think with that one, we're just scratching the surface of his ability to write songs, you know? And now I'm focusing on the Anthology CD, and I could have picked out some other stuff to throw in there to show his abilities, but we're sticking to this CD. But there's a little bit of a breakdown in that song before he goes back into the right place, right? And it hits me every time. Like, I have to say, like, I really enjoy every morning when I put this, because I've been, you know, listening to it every morning with my coffee, and then I've been taking it with me on my walks. And actually, this reminds me of something I wanted to say. So I use Tidal on my main audio system. They do not, as far as I know, have this anthology. Spotify does have it, so I'll put a link to Spotify so you can listen to it there. But I'm also going to put links to the merch on his Bandcamp, where you can buy some other CDs. And you can also just buy his music straight off Bandcamp as well, right? Anyway, I thought I should mention that. But yeah, we're just scratching the surface of his abilities. And as I listen to this CD, it's been very much a learning experience for me about the music that I enjoy. And the reason I say that is that music that starts... So there's typically two types of music that I enjoy. I like stuff like early Beatles. I like Chuck Berry. I like the Rollers, you know, and stuff like that. I like Motown. Now, Motown can get very, very deep later on. But I also love, you know, just straightforward Marvelettes. Like, for me, the Marvelettes were one of the best singing groups they had for a long time. But I also love Schumann, and I love John Coltrane, and people are sick of hearing this about me, and I like Bach, and I like Brahms, you know? And sometimes I like Beethoven, but for me it can be overwhelming, right? But here's the thing. There's this middle ground where songwriters become composers, right? Or they're heading towards that. And typically I don't listen to it. And I'm not trying to insult any of the bands I'm about to mention. I'm just saying I don't listen to them. I don't really listen to Supertramp. I don't really listen to Queen. I don't listen to Meatloaf. Now, Meatloaf never wrote any of his good stuff. That was all someone else that was writing that. It was actually, like, Bad Out of Hell was a musical that then was turned into an album for him, but he was not originally in the musical, right? But Elton John is another example. This is music that when I listen to it, Supertramp would be the perfect example of I have a huge amount of respect for what they've done, but I can't enjoy it because it's hitting this weird middle ground where I want to, if you want to get a groove on, I want to listen to James Brown, or I want to listen to Chuck Berry, or I want to listen to the Marvelettes, or whatever. But if you want to be serious, okay, then I can listen to some of the other artists that I mentioned, Schumann or Coltrane or stuff like that. And so this is just me. This is just my personal taste. But taste is a weird thing. Duncan is a very tasteful writer. So even when he goes into that realm where we're starting to head towards composing instead of simply songwriting, right? And I know that there some people even say they're the same thing. I do not believe they're the same thing. In order to compose, you have to be able to write a score for several different types of instruments, and there are different rules that suddenly start to come out that when you're doing songwriting, those rules don't exist, right? And there are a bunch of methods that you use to develop songs. Now, I am not saying that Duncan is Beethoven, but I'm saying he moves outside of the realm of simply songwriting towards composing, but he does it tastefully. And so it's been kind of an interesting experience for me because typically I do not enjoy going down that path. It's the same thing for, like, I'm not going to mention any bands, but some bands have had their music put to an orchestra, and I listen to it and I'm like, that's just horrible. Like, that music was not meant to be played by an orchestra. You've got like parallel fifths all over the place, and there's not enough depth in the music for this. And I love the music. It's just that it is not meant for an orchestra. But Duncan can, I believe, write. I do believe that he can write for an orchestra, and he's the kind of person that can write on commission. I think he's just a very flexible. Now, a lot of this comes from the fact that he is so familiar with piano keyboard, right? And I know from my limited experience that if you can visualize things on a piano and you can understand a score, the world kind of opens up for you in a way that for other people it may not. But anyway, I don't want to get too deep into that. But what I'm saying is he is one of the few songwriters that moves in towards composition and then has these more complex songs, but they're still tasteful and they make sense in the rock and roll world, right? And so I can enjoy them. And I think this next song is a perfect example of that. I don't think there's any other artist that writes stuff like this that can do it as tastefully as him. So this is a very, very special place that he ends up in, right, with music like this. So this one is called In 100 Years, and I think it's a shockingly good song. And yeah, let's listen to part of it now.
Memories are left behind like life is just a dream. Can't believe what happened here, the saddest day I've seen. In 100 years, there could never be no one like you. All along I pray that you are home tonight, living in a special world with love and things that are right. In 100 years, there could never be no one like you. You say we'll know the difference, and one day now will I. But I can't believe someone like you has turned around and died. In 100 years, there could never be no one to be as thankful to for everything you've done. You've got so much love, and I'm gonna come home to see you again. But the rain is falling, I can hear you calling for all of my life.
I hate to cut stuff off like that, but trust me, it gets even better. Hard to believe, right? but it does. Let me just see here 1 second. Yeah, so actually, there was something I wanted to mention about this CD set, if you can find it. It's very hard to find. As I mentioned before, I think you can play it on Spotify. One big problem for me, you can see I have a bunch of records behind me, and the reason I still have records is because often things are reissued on CD, but the dynamic range disappears, and so I don't enjoy it at all. I want to say that the dynamic range on this double CD is good. I'm quite happy with it. I think it's great, so I thought I should mention that. And it sounds decent on Spotify as well, right? Okay, so I have 2 more songs I want to play through. This one is another like super high level mixing, composing, and songwriting. And it's called "Tonight I Pray for a Miracle." And just so everyone understands, there was one song I played tonight is from CaRu, but everything else, these are solo songs. And you know what? I'm going to say, for the most part, I really love Duncan's solo stuff the most, right? I just think it's tremendous. But let's get into this next song, and I'm going to discuss it a tiny bit, and then I have one last song that I want to play. So here we go.
This one's for you when tears can be dry. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Alone in this room, dying too soon. Tears on my face, how they run. When you cannot see the hurt inside of me, don't you ever go away. And the world has an endless sky. And tonight I pray for a miracle. Your life is like an endless sea, flowing dreams right back to me. I know your dreams, you aim so high. You were the one that never let a day go by. How can this be? Life isn't free. Never could this be reality. The friends you love are here. So much love is in the air. Don't you ever go away. And the world has an endless sky. As far as I can see, I pray for a miracle. Your life is like an endless sea, flowing dreams right back to me.
Okay, I had been saying that he seems like the kind of person that can write, compose, for different instruments. That you have a choir here. It all works out really well. I really love it. It's shocking to me because typically that type of thing I wouldn't listen to. But once again, I come back to the fact that it's tasteful. Sometimes taste is thrown out the window in order to achieve certain things, right? And it shouldn't be. But that's just my personal taste, right? Okay. But something I hadn't mentioned, and it really came out in this one, does he not also have a great voice? Like, the guy has a great voice as well. So there's like, he's really got it all, and it's no wonder, like, people don't understand, and I don't even comprehend, but how much of a rock star Duncan was in South Africa, like absolutely huge rock star, like you cannot comprehend, women bashing down his door to get at him type of rock star. But when you hear stuff like this, it's like, well, that makes perfect sense. So I have one last piece I want to play, and there is a separate topic here. Now, there is this other topic in music, and the pronunciation of it goes all over the place. It's timbre, timbre, the thing about music is that a lot of the words used in music go back to like Latin and stuff or Italian, and we don't really know. But generally, the timbre or timbre, whatever, is the quality of the sound that you're getting from something, right? It's not just the pitch, right? So with the violin, for example, it's the pitch mixed with the vibrato, right? This next song starts off so beautifully, and the timbre, which I assume is from some type of synthesizer, is perfection. It's absolute perfection. And then it has, and unfortunately, I'm playing only a short snippet of this, but, you can go listen to it. But fortunately, the songwriting, like the chord progression and the melody, back it up. And so it makes it extra special. So I think you'll understand what I'm saying as soon as you hear the beginning of this song. It's the last song I'm going to play, but I will come back for a few seconds to talk about it. It's called Love Light.
Don't let that love light go out tonight. Who cares what day this is? Long as I'm with you like this, I wanna hold you, I wanna show you how much I love you till the morning sun comes through. Don't let that love light go out tonight. Let it shine. Always that love light will shine throughout the night. Let it shine for you. I've got this feeling the love I'm needing is right in front of me. The first time that I can see, how can I say this? Life can be hit or miss, but where the heart is, that's where life is. Don't let that love light go out in daylight. Let it shine on. And when my daydreams turn into night dreams, I'll be there for you. Always.
Okay, I hope we don't have too much noise coming from upstairs because the son is home from work and is blasting his music. But listen, those are my choices from CD number 1 from Duncan's anthology. Tremendous, tremendous stuff. Check in the description for links to Spotify and to Bandcamp, where you can purchase or listen to some of this music. I will be back someday, not too long from now, to go through the second CD and some of the stuff that I mentioned earlier today that I didn't actually play because it's not on the first CD. So that's how I'm splitting things up. Tremendous stuff thanks again to everyone that sends their requests into dedication. Fans, remember the Bay City Rollers. I am so fortunate that I am on that show sometimes, but the audience is so knowledgeable and I learn from them. That's the reality. I don't even know why they put me on there. There must be a reason, but I don't know what it is. But I enjoy it, and I will be back on there soon. And I'm going to be actually doing a show at some point in time about all of this music, but it'll be more curated, and, we'll have the entire pieces of music, right? So I look forward to that. Thank you to Duncan for all of the music that you have written, and I did reach out to Duncan to say I am going to do this, and he seemed to be okay with it, and thank you for that. Have a good night, everyone, and you know what? Go listen to this music. It's fantastic.